following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations. The following program contains opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised. For a real view, real opinion, and for an honest conversation, it's time to Get Real with Mahieash Johnney. Coming to you tonight from Temple Trees in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to our returning episode of Get Real. Thank you very much for being here. Tonight, of course, it is a special program. Since it is our returning program, we make sure that we give you one of the special interviews that we possibly can get. Before I start the interview, I want to start off with a small story, which is about these two female politicians who went on a television network locally here. And they were talking about the future of our country, and then they were arguing how we can solve problems. In one of those instances, one from the ruling party and the other from the opposition, asked the question, Madam, do you think like you will ever be able to form a government? That was the question made by one of the politicians, the ruling party politician. But if I may say so, the rookie politician says, okay, don't say that. Who knows what will happen in the future? Apparently, she seems to be either a soothsayer or a magician, because she kind of predicted the future, because after a few years, 6.8 million people dictates me to call her Madam Prime Minister. Madam Prime Minister, everyone, and welcome to the program.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to actually speak to you, giving us the interview to pose questions that matters to our country, and to have an honest conversation with you. I appreciate the time that you actually gave us.
Happy to be here.
So we have a lot to cover.
Yes.
So the first things first, I understand you're really passionate about the education aspect of things, because also you are the Minister of Education, plus higher education and vocational training as well. But you are also, beyond that, the Prime Minister of our nation. So the biggest question that everybody wants to know is about the economy, because one of the reasons that you are seated as in the seat of the Prime Minister is because of the economic crisis we went in 2022 and the people's complete rejection of the old way of doing politics. So here we are right now, a new administration, an administration that has never had power prior, just 3 seats prior to the last year's elections. And now, given the biggest amount of seats in Parliament, the executive branch, and also the local authorities as well, all 3 are under you. Everybody wants to know how the economy is going on, how the economy is coming around. Let me ask you, I know that you all actually have said that you are following the IMF plan. But do you have anything beyond the IMF bailout plan? Or is there some kind of concrete plan that your government is either introducing or hoping to introduce?
When we came into power, when we formed the government, we basically inherited a country that was stalled. So there was the IMF bailout package and very little else. Development had not taken place, construction had come to a halt, employment levels were low. Recruitment to the public sector had not happened for over 4 or 5 years. Self-employment, entrepreneurs were in trouble. So basically it was a country where for over 3-4 years, nothing much had happened. So what we're doing now is not just continuing on the path of the IMF bailout package, but also kick-starting the country again. So for instance, the development that was stalled, many projects that were halted, many investors who had withdrawn, many donors who had stopped funding because of the debt crisis are now back in the picture. For instance, the Japanese grant, the Japanese project for developing the airport, which had been completely halted, is now underway. Road construction is on the way again. Rural road development is taking place again. Irrigation systems that were not repaired or rehabilitated for a long time, those are restarting again. School buildings that had started and had come to a complete standstill, those projects have started again. So many of we basically started the development that had stalled for over 3-4 years. We have started again, and that's what you see, the activity that is going on. Cadres that were frozen for many years, we have started recruiting to the health sector, teachers, over 3,000 teachers, to the education sector. In all of these different areas, recruitment has started again. So it's much more than just following a package. We are actually kickstarting a country that had stalled for over 4-5 years.
In terms of a plan beyond the IMF, what does the country's going to be like? Because right now I think somewhere around in 2027 or 2028 we are going to run out with the program that the IMF had put in place. So what's going to happen to the economy beyond that?
I think the president, when he met with the IMF this year, also said our goal is to build the country up to a level so that we would never have to go for a bailout package again. And that's our target. So even in our election campaign, in our manifesto, something that we've stressed over and over again is that the country needs to start manufacturing again, needs to start producing again, needs to start innovating. So this is what we are really looking at in the next few years. Not just the debt management process, not just managing the fiscal part of the economy, but actually getting growth, right? So that means investors coming in, that means helping startups, that means building the capacity of our human resources to be able to generate employment and also to find employment. It's identifying the sectors that can really bring in investment for us, create employment. It's getting our agriculture sector flourishing again. So it's really about the growth now, right? That's now I think in the first few months of our being in government, our focus was on stability and continuity and not to create too much of a disruption to a system that had already gone through so much. Now we've achieved that. The next level is growth, right? And that's what we're focusing on.
So talking about growth, we need investors to come in here and also our products to go out there. Whatever we manufacture here, we want it to be exported. Talking about exports, Trump tariffs is one of the areas that is now in conversation, not just here in Sri Lanka, but all around the world. We're going to be slapped with a 44% of taxes. On top of that, another 10%, which is also effective immediately. Our exporters are paying. What our exporters are telling us is that apparently the buyers in the United States are already telling them they cannot take the taxes, absorb the taxes into their products when they sell it in the United States market. I know conversations are occurring with your government and the Trump government. We were told that somehow 14% was able to be reduced at the moment, but then more is to be done. Let's talk about, it's good that if by any chance it comes to a really amicable solution where we both benefit. But in case that fails and we come up with a 44% of taxes, what's the backup plan?
So as you pointed out also, this is not a situation that's just affecting us. It's affecting the whole world. So the initial tariff that was imposed was 44%. We've negotiated and that's come down to 30%. So that's where the 14% reduction has been achieved. So from 44, we've come down to 30. Negotiations are still going on, and we are hopeful that we will get a further reduction. But given the global uncertainty, and also given the fact that many of our competitors are actually struggling with even a higher tariff than what we've been slapped with, I think what we are also focusing on doing is looking at new partners, new trading partners, new trade agreements, right? Recently the United Kingdom declared a tariff relief for countries, including Sri Lanka, which will be of a huge benefit to us. The EU is another region that we are negotiating with the Middle East, with our Southeast Asian partners. So this is also, in a way, a moment for us to seek new alliances, new partners, because also don't forget that this moment is going to require a realignment among all trading partners. This is not just Sri Lanka, right? So ultimately, what will also happen is that most other countries are also going to find it difficult to sell their products or their goods in the US with the increased tariffs, and that we are all going to be competing for new markets, right? So that's going to be the reality for the next few months. So I think what we are also focusing on doing is making sure that we are competitive, making sure that we have an edge when it comes to our products. So for the apparel industry, I think, again, we have to make sure that our products are good enough and are desirable enough that we can compete well, right? So it's all of those factors that have to be taken into account. It's also constantly, the goalpost keeps shifting. Right?
Madam Prime Minister, if I may ask, you said time to look at new partners too. What is the areas of these new partners is going to look like? Because if you look at the continent of Africa, Sri Lanka has not even scratched the surface. Look at South America, has not even scratched the surface. China, still not even anything being done there. These are huge markets which Sri Lanka actually can benefit to. Is your government doing anything to get into those markets?
We certainly are. We've really reorganized our foreign relations, also our capacity to be able to negotiate these kinds of things. We are making sure that we are appointing the right people in those countries who can negotiate those deals for us, who can promote Sri Lanka for us and promote Sri Lankan trade. So certainly we see that there's a huge potential for areas like construction, where our construction companies are now good enough and competitive enough to be able to go out and establish themselves. There are already companies that have started doing that. We feel that we need to really recognize where our strength lies, and that's in our human resources and at a certain higher level. We can't compete with producing cheap goods cheaper than, say, China or Vietnam or some of those other. We can't do that. We can't match those kinds of prices, right? So it's finding those other niche areas that we can really be competitive, whether it be, so even if you look at tea, which is one of our most traditional export goods, right? Should we be marketing like mass-produced black tea, right, which has a brand, or do we capitalize on that brand and really make our brand a luxury tea, organic tea, special flavored tea, so that you're capturing a really niche market, right? So those are the areas we're looking at, whether it's rubber products, whether it's even in those traditional areas, our spices, right? So how do we really build on this brand that we have, our cinnamon, our pepper, right? So those are the kinds of ways in which we're trying to make sure that we capture a real specific niche market for ourselves and really understand where our strengths are, rather than try to compete in an area that we will never be able to be competitive.
Madam Prime Minister, let's talk about the cost of living here in Sri Lanka. One of the promises that was given by your government prior to coming to power in election platforms was the fact that you're not going to do the same thing that 75 years of either this party or that party, where the power just shifted from one to the next, is going to do. You're going to reinvent the rule book. You're going to reinvent our strategies, and your government is going to basically take us out of the whole process of governance that was occurring in the past 75 years. And one of the promises was to ease the burden, the cost of living. If you take the 2022 standards to right now, it is still high, and people are finding it difficult to go day by day, put food on the table. So we also see that following the IMF plan, lots of taxes are also coming in to play, like the IT services getting taxed, a new tax being in property taxes. Things like that keeps coming in, which is also piling up the burden on the common person here in Sri Lanka. What exactly are you all doing to ease that? Because that is like the immediate need right now, rather than, I mean, people are not going to wait for 5 years to have that kind of relief, because they are asking for it now, and they are looking at your government to give that leadership. So where are we in terms of reducing the burden?
We haven't raised taxes. What we have done is we've really worked and we've really focused on expanding our tax base. This is something that we've really focused on, right? So, in fact, we lowered the tax threshold. In our first budget, our tax threshold was lowered. So for professionals, there was a relief, right? We have not been able to reduce the VAT. This is something that we are targeting, because that's what's going to affect the most number of people, and this is what we are aiming for. But for that, we require a much more robust economy, and that's the target. You mentioned the digital tax. Again, this was done in also based on our assessment of what was happening to local digital service providers who are at an unfair disadvantage, because their online services were being taxed with VAT, whereas digital service providers outside the country could provide the same service and not be taxed. For example, Uber. So PickMe had an 18%, would have to pay an 18% tax, whereas Uber doesn't, which made PickMe more costly than Uber services here. So what we have now done is make our local digital service providers more competitive by making sure that everyone is taxed the same amount, right? So Uber, who would be paying tax elsewhere, it doesn't get taxed here, giving an unfair advantage, being able to hold an unfair advantage over our local companies. So we've managed to resolve that. But we recognize the fact that this might have a negative impact on startups, right? And this is something we are working on. This is something we are discussing with our startups, and we want to make sure that our startups are not disadvantaged. And this is something that the government will very soon be addressing, hopefully within this month, where then we protect our startups as well, right? So our tax policy has always been about expanding the tax base.
You mean bringing more people into the
tax bracket through direct taxing that is not just about person. I mean, if professionals are paying taxes, so should entities that are generating profit, right? So that it's not just people being taxed on their salaries, right? So this is something that we've been working on. And on the other hand, because we understand and recognize that the cost of living is still high, and it's still difficult for people. This is why we've also really strengthened our social protection interventions, right? In fact, this is something that we really paid a lot of attention to. Lots of relief initiatives and interventions were made. I could just name a few just in the education sector, where the school meal was expanded, stationery vouchers were given, school shoes, sanitary napkins, uniforms, all of this, so that, as much as possible to make sure that poverty would, or the high cost of living would not keep kids out of school, right? We increased the Mahapola bursary, right? So what we've tried to do is also compensate from our social protection package.
Is there a mechanism to ensure that it gets to the real people? Because this kind of giving handouts have been happening for within various governments in order to make sure that the social protection of the lower end income structure is taken care of.
Yeah.
So is there a monitoring mechanism? Because that was the only thing that was missing in the previous administration. Is that happening?
Absolutely. Well, I don't like to call it handouts, because that gives an impression that this is something that it's sort of like something that we are giving people who don't really deserve to be helped. That's not it. Every country needs to have a strong social protection system to protect its vulnerable, to protect those who are unable to fend for themselves for whatever complicated reasons, right? And this could be temporary, this could be long term. Can we target better? Certainly, right? And this is something we're constantly working on. So, for example, with our voucher system for school kids stationery, we experimented with several models, because we also wanted to make sure that while we are targeting, we are also not we also ensure the dignity of the recipient. Right? So in the end, what we did was we gave the voucher, as you know, there was a stationery voucher given to all kids who were part of the Aswasuma program. We topped it up by also selecting kids who were in schools with less than 300, because those are the most sort of deprived schools. Yeah. So that was our target, right? Was it the best in that context? That was the best we could come up with. That was fair enough for everyone. Can we improve? Most certainly.
Yeah.
Right? May I just say one thing?
Yes.
You asked about monitoring. This is what we are hoping to do with our Praja Shakti program, which was launched a couple of weeks ago, which is completely about a community-based community empowerment program that will also be then empowered to make sure that the social protection systems are validated by the community, and that there's also programs to make sure that people come out of those programs and are not sort of stuck in that welfare system or the social protection system for eternity.
I know this particular question I'm raising next is been addressed many times, but before I take a break, I want to give you the opportunity to quickly address it as well. Apparently, you're following the same path of the Wickramasinghe administration in terms of the economy, fixing the economy, the IMF plan, and the opposition keeps calling it the Wickramasinghe 2.0 version of it. How do you respond to that?
Well, the opposition has to say something, right? So, I mean, we are not too fazed by that. But I think we can't be too. I mean, I don't see how much more we can be different from the Wickramasinghe regime. Wickramasinghe was all about IMF. We are so much more. Wickramasinghe certainly didn't tackle corruption. Wickramasinghe certainly didn't tackle the governance issues. Wickramasinghe had frozen the public sector. We are strengthening the public sector while also making it more efficient. Wickramasinghe talked about digitalization and did sweet nothing about it. We are actually doing things about it. We've already started the digitalization process, and in 2-3 years we see that as one of the biggest pillars of impacts that our government will bring in. We've brought a sea change in the political culture, something that Wickramasinghe could never even dream of doing. So I don't see how much more different we can be from the Wickramasinghe government.
I'll leave it for you to debate in the parliament with your colleagues there.
No, we let them prattle on.
Let's take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with the Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. We've been talking about the economy. We want to move on to other subjects as well. So let's take a small break, and when we return, we'll get to that. Welcome back, everyone, to Get Real. I'm in conversation now with the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. We've been talking about the economy, and Prime Minister, now I want to move on to something that is concerning to a lot of people, not a lot of, basically the whole of Sri Lanka is concerned about this. The spate of violence that has been skyrocketing in the recent months. Certain statements were made in Parliament as well by ministers who are related to that particular subject, who agreed that yes, there is an increment in these number of killings, shootings, massacres that keeps happening on a daily basis. What does that say about the security status of our nation? Because a safer nation is very crucial in order to grow this nation as well. So people who are concerned about the spate of violence, is the government in control?
Very much so. There hasn't been an increase. I wouldn't describe what is happening right now as an increase. We have a problem with organized crime, which we are tackling. But if you look at the figures, and if you let me just tell you, in 2022, there were 45 such incidents. 2023, 40. 2024, I'm talking about the deaths that occurred, 51. 2025, 26. So this is not something that came up recently, right? Since we took office, which is 7-8 months now.
10 months.
10 months.
Yeah.
10 months. So that is from September of last year. These figures are fairly consistent with what has been happening in the last several years. It's a same pattern. We have been taking this organized crime problem very seriously. We have made over 200 arrests so far with regard to that. There are lots of ongoing investigations. Many who have been overseas, who've been hiding, we've managed to bring back and start proceedings. So we are taking this very seriously. I wouldn't say in any sense of the word that the government is not in control of national security, because I think as we've demonstrated in the past, we've been able to prevent many incidents from occurring. You know what this country was like. This was a country where the government was unable to prevent something as huge as the Easter attack, despite intelligence information, right? We've been much more proactive in keeping track of intelligence reports and taking necessary action. Like in recently, a few months ago, when there were intelligence reports about possible attacks on tourist destinations, tourist targets, right? So I mean, again, like you were saying, the opposition needs a topic. This is just another topic that they flail around with, and they keep throwing things at us and hope that something sticks, and so far nothing is sticking.
In terms of one of the accusations that you all used to make when you all were in the opposition to the existing governments, whether it's the Wickremesinghe government or the Rajapaksa governments or any of those governments, is the interference in the judiciary, in the interference, trying to meddle with certain aspects of the bribery commission, the judiciary, the police, all those kinds of things. Those are things that you all used to accuse those administrations. So what are you doing to ensure that you don't do what you accuse them of doing, and to make sure that the independence of the judiciary, the bribery commission, the police, and all the law enforcement arm of the government continues to do their job independently?
I think the results speak for themselves. I can tell right now, so many cases that had been previously neglected or forgotten about or swept under the carpet are being investigated, right? I mean, prosecutions are happening. People are being charged. People are also being sentenced, right? So I think what is happening right now in the judiciary, whether it's in Siabok, right? The Siabok was put in place before we came into power, but Siabok has actually started functioning. People are beginning to understand that there's something called the Siabok, and the Siabok has powers to investigate, I think, only after we came into power. And that is precisely because we are letting these institutions function independently, and these officials do their job without any political bias or interference.
Let me have a small follow-up question before I move on to the next topic. The opposition continues to accuse the government it's a witch hunt, and most of these arrests that has been made is of the opposition, and it is just basically what they used to do when they were in power. They took people of the opposition to courts, and that same rotation is occurring this time around as well.
Mahieash,
do you see that?
I mean, I don't think our government can be responsible if in past governments were filled with crooks and robbers, right? So unfortunately, most of the cases that are being investigated involve members of previous governments. I mean, we cannot avoid it.
Okay, so let's move on. With regard to the policies, this is something that actually falls under your other administration, which is the Education Ministry. Youth. There's a massive amount of brain drain that is occurring within this country. The youth, finding a job for a youth in Sri Lanka is like the second-hand thing. They first look for elsewhere all around the world, and then they try to go there and make sure that they are taken care of, rather than actually looking for a job here in Sri Lanka and contribute to the economy and going so on and so forth. But what exactly is the government doing in terms of ensuring that our youth, instead of going towards the nefarious side of things, just the unrest and wasting their lives, it could be drugs, it could be some kind of other aspect of it. What exactly is the government doing to bring them back into the system? Because there is a dearth when it comes to employment. New people need to come into the employment card. So how are we tackling that matter?
Well, I think the education reforms that we've undertaken are addressing, that's precisely what it's addressing. But also, I don't have such a negative view of the youth of our country. I think it's a very small minority who are engaging in nefarious activities or whatnot. If you really look at it, it's the political class that is mostly responsible for a lot of the nefarious activities. Our young people are engaging in education. It's a changing world also. Look, I mean, there's mobility. People don't think twice about moving overseas for a job, and good luck to them if that's what they want and those are their aspirations. We have a responsibility to develop and strengthen our economy to be able to attract that brain, that human capacity, those young people to remain. That's our responsibility, and that's what we are trying to do by building up our economy, and also by making sure that our education system is equipping people with the skills that are necessary, not just to look for employment, but to generate employment, right? But the future is going to be very different. The future is not going to be, conventional kind of employment opportunities. And our youth have to be ready for that. And that's what we really want to do.
Do you see our youth being ready for that? And do they have the opportunity to be ready?
Well, that's up to us. We have to make sure that they have the opportunity. Otherwise, that is our responsibility, to make sure that they are ready and that they get the opportunities to prepare themselves. That is what we are all about. That's what we have to do.
Talking about accountability and transparency is something that your government has promised in the election platform, saying that your administration is going to be a very transparent administration. You will tell the people what's happening within the walls of the government, the governing process. It's not going to be all shut down and people like what happened in 2022. People were not aware of the fact that our entire reserves were draining, and then suddenly we find out there's a crisis. One of those things were the pillars of your promises you made to the people in the election platform. But we saw recently the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he was here, he signed a security pact. We have no clue as to what this security pact is. We have no clue as to what it contains, how it puts Sri Lanka in what kind of position. We have no details of that, nor has you filed this in the parliament. Why is that, madam, and what is the reason to keep it so,
there is actually a court case on that, so we cannot submit it to Parliament, right, till that court case is completed. That particular agreement we are not in a position to present to Parliament, but we have been very open about answering questions that are raised in Parliament. We have given answers. Very few. As the Prime Minister, I've answered, I think, almost all the questions that I get promptly. There are instances where I've asked for time simply because some of the questions require me to get information from multiple agencies and institutions, and the questions come to you usually a few hours before the question is raised in Parliament, and there are instances where the officials have said they require more time because I have to be responsible for the information I provide the Parliament, the honourable members who raise these questions. We have been very prompt in answering questions that have been raised in Parliament, and I think or presenting reports often. One of the problems was that during the economic crisis that the information was not presented to Parliament on time. We've been doing that. The President himself has been submitting the reports as the Minister of Finance very promptly to Parliament, and we've given the Parliament plenty of opportunity to raise these issues, raise them in committee, if not in the chamber. So I think we are fulfilling that promise.
Will you be submitting it after the court case?
Depends on the verdict of the court case as well, and it's not something I can comment on while there's an ongoing case.
Understood. Let's take a short commercial break, and when we return, I want to talk about one of the other ministries that the Prime Minister is involved in, which is our Education Ministry, and how exactly she is trying to push the narrative of the future of our education, the future of our children, and exactly what this government hopes to do different from the other administration that we've seen in every single election platform. Everybody talks about children is our future, but when it comes to real work, Madam Prime Minister, it has been a little bit less in delivery. We'll speak to the Honourable Prime Minister right after this short break. When we return, this is Get Real. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to our returning episode of Get Real. I'm in conversation with the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Prime Minister, you're also the Minister of Education, and I think in almost all your speeches that you have made in the public, you have somehow managed to refer to the children, and you have at one instance said that everything you do when you are in the government and even forming the policies and strategies of your government, one of the key things that you're asking the people to do is to keep the children in mind and do it. So let me go back a little bit into the past, somewhere around in 2012, when you were part of the Federation of University Teachers Association, FUTA. At that moment, you were actually campaigning for the GDP, the allocation of funding for students, to be at around 6%. But that was during a time which you were not even having power, or you did not have any kind of authority at that time. But here we are, you are the Prime Minister, you are the second in command of our country, and also the Minister of Education. Best opportunity to bring it to 6% of GDP. But last budget it was just only 2%. What happened, and what is the distance between the two?
There's actually no dissonance. 6% is the benchmark. Even in 2011, 2012, when we were campaigning for 6% of GDP, when we never demanded that 6% be given immediately. That was the benchmark. We knew that the country was not in a position to provide 6% of GDP for education, nor was it a realistic proposition at that point. I mean, 6% is the benchmark that we need to reach. Right,
during your administration?
That's the UNESCO benchmark that we've committed to as a country. And even in our manifesto, what we've said is that we will systematically get to the point of 6%, because it's not just throwing money at education, it is also about creating the systems that can make sure that money is well spent. For instance, when we took over the Ministry of Education, they had only spent 50% of their capital budget in the previous years. So even if we throw more money at a system which is not functioning at an optimum level, we will not be able to utilize that money effectively. So one of the most important things we've been doing this year is to make sure that our systems are in place to be able to effectively spend the money that is allocated to us. This year, the 2% was an increase from what was previously allocated for education. We got 619 billion for education. Our target is to make sure that is spent in the allocated time, because it is only then that we can demand more money.
How do you hope to spend this? Is it like, what exactly is the focus? Because spending could be meaning even, printing T-shirts or some
Trust me, that's not what we are planning to do.
What I'm trying to, my point I'm trying to make is, where is the focus? Because the world is changing, the requirement for the job market is changing, and there's a complete disparity between the syllabus and making a student ready when they go out there. They can actually utilize the knowledge they gain in schools for the betterment of whatever the lives that they want to live. So how are you planning, what exactly is the core area of that funding being focused on?
So this is what our education transformation program is all about. There are 5 pillars in that transformation program. One is the curriculum revision that we are undertaking, and which we will start implementing in 2026, starting with grades 1 and 6, which is about making sure that a kid who enters our system leaves with the confidence and the know-how to function effectively in this world, with a clear idea about where he or she wants to go. So one of the big changes we are making is from grade 9 onwards, where a skills option will be introduced into the school curriculum, so that a child will have more experience about the world of work and be able to chart a career path with guidance from the school. Right? So this is the curriculum reform that we are planning. But to do that, we need good teachers, and this is where the second investment comes in really developing a human resource capacity within the education system, whether it's the teachers, the principals, the administrators. That's the second pillar. The third pillar is a changing of our learning and assessment system, As you know, right now it's very much exam-focused, rote learning. So we are moving from that to a school-based assessment, a combination of school-based assessment and nationally validated exams, so that children will get constant feedback, but also have that feedback directing them into the pathways that they want to follow, but which are then benchmarked nationally in line with our international education benchmarks as well. So the learning and assessment system is going to undergo a major transformation. The fourth is we need the infrastructure to accommodate all these changes, whether it's more labs in the schools, whether it's more space in the schools, smaller classrooms, more innovative play areas, all of these things, right? Music rooms, studios, all of these things that we want to introduce. So there's a whole infrastructure component, that's the fourth pillar. And the fifth pillar is that society also needs to be part of this dialogue of change, right? Parents need to understand what it is we are doing. Kids need to understand what it is we are doing. So there's a big, we are also planning a public awareness campaign, a media campaign where people can engage with the reforms. I understand that since we started this the information sharing, as well, there's lots of discussion happening right now about the education reform, right? And that's exactly what we want.
In terms of, this is a daunting task. This is a huge commitment. You think you have the time frame allocated accurately and we can actually pull this off? Because these kinds of promises we've seen in previous administrations, what's the difference from those to this?
Because we've already started. This is year one and we've already started, right? We have 5 years, right? And we think in the 5 years we can set the foundation for this transformation. We have set up a project office in the Ministry of Education, which is tasked with basically monitoring the implementation of these 5 pillars, right? We have a task force in the ministry where we have brought all the different institutions involved in this to help us plan this. Are there challenges? Yes. Are we kept awake at night worrying about this? All of us are, right? But this is a challenge that we have to deal with, that we have to face. We can't run away from it. If we do not do this, make this change now, if we do not fix the education system in our country, if we don't make education less stressful for our children, our country can never get to that other level that you talked about in your earlier set of questions about growth and the economy. This we need to do. So it's going to be really difficult. We're going to face many challenges, but we still have to do it.
You mentioned about the change of curriculum and how it's going to be modified to a level where a child will be able to come out and utilize that knowledge for day-to-day engagements. One of the criticisms that keeps coming back is the fact that you're trying to rewrite history. The history books.
I'm trying to rewrite history.
This entire program is trying to rewrite the history of the country, certain elements of it. They're trying to wash it out. All these kinds of this curriculum, how you present certain facts. So factually, how do you respond to these kinds of criticism, which is now also, I mean, you said that the dialogue has already started. Yes. So the conversation is already happening very vigorously on social media and in other mediums as well. So are you trying to really do that, or what is the mismatch here?
I'm not quite sure what that noise is about. I mean, there's noise and there's conversation. We want the conversation and the dialogue. That's all really good. I think you may be referring to something that that we are doing away with teaching history in the curriculum. Maybe that? Because I can't rewrite history. I wish I could, but I certainly can't. That's not within my purview or power to do that. There are historians who write history. I'm not a historian. Actually, what we're doing is making history very much a part of the curriculum, because we feel that history is I'm not a historian, but I'm a history buff, and I understand the value of history, because we need to understand the past in order to understand our present. right? And history is not just about memorizing dates and facts and names of kings. It's much more than that. And that's the kind of history we want to bring into this curriculum. So what we have done is it's compulsory up to grade 9. After that, in our new system, a student will be directed towards different streams that where he or she may be able to find their own pathway. And there are several streams that we are introducing. Humanities and social sciences, STEM, management and entrepreneurship, technology and skills, right? We've made history compulsory for all of those streams. So even if you are doing STEM subjects, you will still have to learn history, and you will still have to learn music, drama, or some kind of aesthetic subject as well.
Are we talking about the kings and queens days, the 2000 years of our history, which we always keeps talking about, but never about the recent history, about the mistakes which we did in the recent past?
No, history is now. This past 5 minutes is also part of history. So it won't. I am not the person who's developing the module. The modules will be developed. There are committees, there are subject experts who do that. These are subject to review and revision, right? There are academic boards that have been appointed, and the subject experts will decide the content of each of these modules, each of these subjects, and it's subject to verification, and
the parents will have a right to say what
absolutely,
they feel.
and it's about also. I mean, this is a learning process. So, what do you need to teach at grade 1? What do you need to teach at grade 9? What do you need to teach at grade 11? Right, and the subject experts decide that, not the Minister of Education.
In terms of another accusation I want to bring and give you the opportunity to respond is that when you, in these curriculums, the new format of the curriculum when it is coming in, that you all are trying to, your administration is trying to slowly slip in certain LGBTQ content into the curriculum books of these children in certain grades. Is there a truth to that, or is this just another set of noise that we keep hearing?
Well, I don't even understand what that means, to slip in LGBTQ content. We think that kids need to know how to be safe, kids need to know about their reproductive health, kids need to understand how their body changes. That is already being taught in schools. This is not something new, right? And the other side of it is that we also have we also get so much reporting going on about child abuse and children being subject to all kinds of exploitation. So they need to have the knowledge to deal with that. They need to know that their bodies undergo certain changes, and that how they need to be able to deal with all those changes, right? And that again is part of education. That is part of education. So are these people saying, whoever is saying this, I don't know, whoever is saying that, is that what they mean? I don't understand. I don't even understand what they mean when you say we are going to slip in LGBTQI. What does that mean?
Let me ask another point. I think one of the areas that you'll be focusing is bringing in technology to education as well, latest technology. It is good. Yes, we need now it is the AI generation. We need our kids to be very much conversant with AI. With that also comes the hidden darkness side of the technology aspect of it, especially when it comes to child predators, online bullying. These kinds of things are now very much prevalent within, not even in just Sri Lanka, all over the world. We hear stories, ghastly stories where kids have been poached online, people pretending to be little kids who are having a conversation with another kid, but it's actually trying to groom them and get them to a certain end. Now, that particular part is also very crucial when you're bringing in these kinds of technology into the school system. What is the who's gatekeeping that, and how the monitoring process is happening? Because parents are very concerned about that aspect. We have seen girls being abused and raped in Sri Lanka who actually was poached through social media because they don't know how to utilize that technology. So how do you tackle that?
We just appointed a task force that is looking at digitalizing education, and we have formed 6 subcommittees under that task force. One of the subcommittees is tasked with looking at online safety. So it's doing 2 things. One, it's looking at how we need to regulate device use, content, all of this, so that it's appropriate and safe for children. But we're also looking at how online platforms can be used to help children deal with these kinds of things, right? Giving them the right messaging and so on and so forth. But one of the tasks that they've been asked to do is to really come up with a set of recommendations about appropriate age when you're exposed to these kind of things, how much access they should be having to devices at which age. There's a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of experts on this. I recently met with the College of Psychiatrists who have their own set of recommendations about online safety. So this is one of the tasks that the Digital Task Force, that particular subcommittee, has been asked to do, and we will be taking on their recommendations when we are implementing the reforms.
Australia did a very radical thing, saying to have a social media account, there is a legal age.
Yeah, Australia is not the only country. There are there are some European countries also who have done the same thing.
Are we thinking in that?
Well, the experts will have to study our context and let us know. Right?
In terms of online, it is a more not the older generation that engages in social media and on online activities. It is the younger generation. Just as you mentioned that yes, we have to get the technology in, it is also bringing in another aspect which is not talked much about: mental health. Which is also very crucial for the children, to make sure that they have a better mental capacity to handle these kinds of elements. It is either they slap a label or give a pill or some kind of therapy or some kind, which is not the healthy way to go ahead. It is all about knowledge and education and things like that. So how are your government trying to tackle that aspect? Because mental health is becoming a crisis, not just in Sri Lanka but all over the world. So do we need more kind of technology that is bringing in harm, or how are we actually addressing that matter?
Well, technology is the medium. It's a tool. It's not the end all or be all of everything. And we have to understand that. Which is why, so when we use it, we need to make sure that we use it safely and that we use it in ways that are appropriate. Which is why we have mental health experts on our teams who are advising us on this. So these are not ad hoc decisions we are going to make. These are going to be decisions that are based on research, on data, on expert advice, and then we will set the parameters for digitalization and how we're going to use it within the education system. What kind of controls we need to bring in, what kind of regulation we need to have, and how we can use it. So that's up to the experts to tell us. As the government, our decisions are based on evidence, on research, and on data. Not on whims and fancies on something that I saw in a paper or an article one day and decide to do. That's not my role. My role is to gather the experts to advise us on how to do this properly, which is why we are taking this systematical approach to this and making sure that the decisions we make at every step that the decisions we make are made correctly, based on facts, on a proper understanding of the ground situation and an understanding of our end goal, which is making sure that we do what is best in the best interest of the child.
Madam Prime Minister, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I wish I had more time to continue the conversation, but apparently time is getting in our way. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time from your busy schedule. I know you haven't been doing a lot of media interviews here in Sri Lanka, and many ministers keeps telling me that apparently you're really busy. But I sincerely appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us on Get Real and making sure that your voice, that your opinions are also being utilized for us to